Thank you for making time to meet with me today. I want to go over the observations that I've collected from your class. Thank you for letting me into your space. I know it's always a little stressful, and I won't take too much of your conference today. So I want to focus on a few things and see how you felt about them.
Okay.
We want to just talk about growth and your perceptions today. I'd like for us to focus specifically on domain 3 in the T-TESS rubric, which emphasizes classroom environment, routines, and procedures with a particular lens on your beginning of classroom routine. So, like the first 5 minutes and maybe a little bit of passing period. Let's look at your scoring. I've marked you as proficient for the entire dimensions, and I want you to look over it and see if you have any questions about the rating.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I'm growing, but it's been here a few years, and that seems fair to me, and I'm happy with that.
Great. Let's break it down a little bit more. So, you stated in your SMART goals that you would like to fine tune your skills in Dimension 3. So, I want to break that down a little bit. Thinking about your day and the observation, how do you feel about the way your students entered the classroom and begin the period?
There's always room for improvement. I want them to be a little more direct, a little more to the point. But with every different class, you're always going to have a few kids that kind of goof off a little bit and need to be redirected. And that's day to day on specific kids, but also just any classroom environment. But for the most part, I could make it a little more structured.
Great. Thank you. So, from my vantage point, the students came in as calm as a sixth grade group, as expected. So, the majority of the class entered the room and then immediately logged on their Chromebooks to start their quick reads and then do their edutyping as soon as they're done with the quick reads. So, for T-TESS, it's easiest to decide where you're at by looking at it from a number standpoint. So, you had 28 students in your classroom, and 22 of them began their task immediately, which is fantastic. 4 of them needed help from a neighbor, and that's great that they knew to reach out to that resource instead of you while you're greeting students at the door. But then 2 of them required you to intervene with both verbal and nonverbal reminders to begin their class routine. So that lets me know that you've got a really great clarity with student expectations, and you're consistent with them because they knew what to do, and those who didn't were easily redirected. Can you tell me some systems and strategies that you've put in place to support students transitioning from the hallway into your instructional setting?
So I like to do fun things. And it changes up, but I do kind of circle back. But for example, one of the big ones the kids all love is into the classroom, they have to beat me at rock, paper, scissors,
That's
which
right.
is real quick.
And they love that.
That can take 30 seconds extra. And so they're already coming in smiling, happy. It puts them in one at a time, but it also means they don't always walk in with their friend. So they're not always talking. I am by myself. I guess I'm just going to go get to my work. But if it's not that, it can be a simple question. What's your favorite type of bear? And when they want to be silly and goofy, it's an engagement process. So when they say, oh, jelly bear, I'm going, okay, high five. That's a good sense of humor. Let's get to work. And so I guess I start with engaging them, with getting them interested in class, smiling, happy, so that they can think about technology.
Fantastic. And we all know that the correct answer is polar bear.
Yeah, I'm a grizzly guy. Yeah.
To each their own. Great. Thank you. So you can tell that your systems are well thought out and you tailor them to student needs, because we have witnessed you throughout the years change these students entering procedures. And it's nice to know that you can recognize your kids and where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So TEA stresses the importance of creating a learning environment that's predictable and learner-centered. I want to ask, how do your beginning of class routines promote student ownership of learning and readiness to engage with your technology?
Well, I guess getting them interested and getting them excited, getting them happy is putting them into that growth mindset so that they can then do the assignment with an open mind and excited and in a happy mood so that brain is ready to learn.
Mm-hmm.
If they come in and it's, oh, I'm going to get told my work, and then I'm going to do my work, then it becomes this work process instead of fun learning opportunity process.
Fantastic. That's really great insight. Thank you. So, in a technology-rich society, student ownership is so important, especially with self-direction, because that plays such a big role. Our kids have to be able to do it by themselves. I'd like for you to do some reflecting now. Looking at your schedule and the class day, how consistent are these routines across different class periods? And are there certain classes where the routine works maybe a little bit better than the other ones?
The routine has to be modified to the students. I have 2 or 3 classrooms during my day where I speak to students only in Spanish. And so Obviously, rock, paper, scissors is no longer rock, paper, scissors. Now they know the game and they understand it. But the communication of what's your favorite bear, que es su oso favorito, becomes a totally different situation because the kids aren't all listening in on each other. Or maybe they are and they say, what did he say or what did she say? And that's also fun for them because maybe in that situation, they're learning an extra language also. Some of my special education populations, they might come in and they maybe my nonverbal students or my not as verbal students don't want to play, and that's okay. Hey, welcome to class. I'm glad you're here. Come on in. So it really is kid to kid more than class to class. Now the class to class is absolutely related to which kids those are, but in most situations, it's really going to be about exactly what that kid needs than what the different classes need.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I think that's really smart for you to recognize because consistency is a part of the building that predictable structure.
Mm-hmm.
But flexibility can help meet students' needs too. It sounds like you've got a really diverse student population with your ESL students or emergent bilingual and your special education students, not to mention your 504 and the integration of our life skills kids into the classroom. I know that really diversifies your class. So according to the T-TESS Domain 3.1, the highly effective classrooms, they got to implement systems that maximize instructional time. So with that in mind, do you feel that your beginning of class routine maximizes time on task, or do you notice any areas where the time is being lost during that transition?
I was afraid that you'd kind of stick me with that one because obviously I do like to enter the class fun. And we do get to work in the bulk of that 51 minutes. But yeah, I'm going to give up a minute or two of that first 2 minutes now.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing there is that they're putting their Chromebooks on, which doesn't just bing on. It's a 2 minute loading process. And so I'm playing into that a little bit by getting something fun out of the way right in that first minute that the computers aren't on, the computers aren't signed in, they're not loaded anyway. But yeah, I mean, you could absolutely go the other direction with it and be very militant, and that might work in certain settings with certain students more than others.
Fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like you really know when you've got time to kill. And so you've really learned where you can use that fun time during times of stalling.
Right.
It's great practice. So one of the KSM expectations is that teachers monitor and refine routines based on student needs and patterns. And it sounds like you're doing that, which is great. So let me ask you this. What cues or indicators do you use to determine if the routine is effective for all of your learners? For example, how do you know if students are truly engaging with the assignment versus just logging on, pretending to type, or pretending to read?
I mean, grading their work, observing what they actually turned in,
The data.
reading through it, the data. But also, if we're talking about that engagement process, if I get them too hyped up, I see that they didn't get their work done that class period, on the same scale as other classes. And so it's a balance of I want them to be smiling and happy, but I also don't want them to come into the classroom, oh, this is just fun. We're about to play games for the next 51 minutes.
Absolutely.
So I guess it's a balance.
Yeah, and when you're teaching a technology elective, I feel like you're always having to walk that tightrope because of public perception and student perception that it's going to be a fun course, but things like technology are becoming a life skill that students need to be successful in the real world. So I think that's great. It looks like you're really attuned to your class's behavioral needs and their data, and that's going to reflect well in your T-TESS. So I'm also wondering, have you considered incorporating any student voice or feedback into refining your beginning of class routines? Have you considered maybe surveys or formative assessments to see if students are liking the way they enter the room? And what would that look like for you?
I would send out, we do Google Forms. That's part of our curriculum to make sure that the students understand how to build that kind of data collection survey. So I guess I could have an assignment where the students make that form and then fill it out for each other. And so they fill each other's forms out, and that would give me good feedback, but also be somewhat honest feedback. Versus if I was to send out that same survey to the students with my adult questions about our engagement process, they would just choose the most fun ones and wouldn't recognize that there needs to be that balance. And so I guess the idea is we can have students build the surveys and students fill them out.
I think that's a great way to lead a technology course where if it was in a math class, it wouldn't make as much sense for students to create the form. But now it's like not only are you getting true feedback from stakeholders, which whether we want to admit it or not, our middle school kids are stakeholders, but you're also teaching them the value of creating and receiving feedback. So
Right.
I think that's a great way about it. And I think that you're really open to student feedback, and I love that. So that might be a new concept for our onboarding sixth graders. We're going to want to keep that in mind. So
Right.
encouraging student voice helps build that inclusive and respectful classroom culture, which is another component of Domain 3. As we wrap up today, I'd love for you to reflect on this question. What is one small change or improvement you might try implementing in your beginning of class routine over the next few weeks? Something that aligns with your goals for maximizing instructional time and student engagement to get the biggest bang for your buck.
So it's a simple thing, but there's a volume to my voice when I'm standing in the doorway, giving the kids instruction. You can imagine this line of kids. Um, about every 3 or 4 kids, they're listening. But the fifth kid in line is too far back and they're not listening. They're talking to homie. And so I have to be able to repeat that same process. Come on in, sign in, log in, get on EduTyping, get on your quick read, whatever the bell ringer activity is. What I'd like to do simple is come on in, sign in, put your phone up, get to work. So that the kid understands I need to get my phone put away so that now that I'm seated, it's work time.
Absolutely.
So I have students that come in, they start the sign in process, and then they remember, oh, I got to go put my phone in the pocket. I need to go pull my water out of my backpack. And then they're back out of their seat. And they haven't started that process. And we're 4 minutes in class instead of that 2-minute window that we would like.
Exactly. Okay. So it looks like there's some really like individual things that you can choose to work on. I think we've got some really great teachers on campus that do this well. And so this seems like a solid next step. As part of your T-TESS growth, I really want to encourage you to try this change and monitor its impact and let me know, especially when it comes to reducing your 4 minutes of student time down to 2 minutes. I think it's a great way to make it a SMART goal because you're measuring it.
Okay.
We just have to figure out the steps in between to get us there. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to do a brief walkthrough to help collect some of this observational feedback if that would be helpful for you. And so let me know if you want any instructional support or research to refer to. I have lots of literature that can help you expedite the student onboarding process into your classroom.
Okay.
We also have many teachers on campus, like I said, who are stewards for classroom routines, and I would love to set up an observation walk for you to see how other teachers are setting up routines. This could help with your own brainstorming or seeing how different structures play out in real time.
Yeah, I would love to see Tammy Jones, Renee Jackson, some of them, the real experts of the field.
There's some really heavy hitters,
Yeah.
and like you're saying, that I think you do a great job of getting them into the classroom, but it's hard when you're at the door to then manage the kids in the room. And so I think these are your people to see how do we create that individualized independence while you're still doing all the great things you're doing at the door, because I don't want that to stop. It's
Absolutely.
just trying to find the balance. Great. So before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to ask or share about your routines? Is there anything else that we haven't covered today?
In the future, I know I got all proficient. I would like in future years to be working towards getting some of that next step up, that
Absolutely.
next level to hit that distinguished, to get towards that, true expert level of teaching. And so I would like to transition some of our future lessons towards what can we do to push that next envelope.
Well, perfect. Let's look at that really quickly.
Okay.
So I actually have pulled up for us all the dimensions for T-TESS.
Okay.
And so if we look closer, I've marked you as proficient because you can see that all procedures and routines and transitions are clear and efficient.
Mhm.
So to get up to the next step to accomplish, it needs to be transitions and procedures that he or she implements effortlessly.
Right.
And so right now, we're working for it. And
Yeah.
we're putting in the work. The students see it, the teachers see it. That's not a problem. That's just how we get to the next step. Something else that I think is a big component of going from proficient to accomplished, like you've pointed out, is it says here in the second bullet point, students take some responsibility for managing student groups, supplies, and or equipment.
Right.
I believe that is your goal point that you want to look at when you're going through your walkthroughs, when you're talking with other teachers, and when we come in for observations, is ask yourself, what am I doing every day to have students managing their own supplies or equipment? And I think you will be easily from proficient to accomplished in no time. Well, thank you so much for meeting for me today. It's clear you've been putting in a lot of thought in how your routines support your students. I'm excited to see how things keep growing in your classroom. I want you to let me know if you ever want to bounce around ideas or need another set of eyes, and I'm happy to help anytime.